So going through the review sheet for you guys, adding and subtraction equations, it's just combining some like terms. You got 5x squared plus x squared is 6x squared. The 3x doesn't have a like term, and neither does the 10. So there's that. Maybe they're in parentheses. We have 20a squared plus 1a squared, so we have 21a squared. You got a 2a plus a 10a, so you have 12a, and then finally plus 1. Here you got an x squared here minus x squared, so those are actually gone. I've turned to 0x squared, so we don't have to write anything. You have 2x plus 5x, which is 7x, and then 1 plus 2, that's 3, so 7x plus 3. Here we have to distribute the negative, and my recommendation, if you ever have to do that, is just to rewrite very quickly so that 5b turns into minus 5b, that plus 3 turns into minus 3. So you have 10b squared, minus 5 is minus 10b, and then minus 3. So again, I would recommend taking the time to rewrite anytime you have to distribute a negative. On to multiplying expressions. So this is where all of a sudden the exponent with x can change. So let's do 3 times 5 is 15, and then there end up being 3 x's. X squared times x is x to the third. Here we just distribute this 5, so we end up with 15xy plus, 75. Here we're going to distribute the 13x squared, so 13 times 2 is 26, and there are 3 x's with the first one, then minus 13 times 2 again, which is 26. This time you have x squared. Number 8, 9, and 10 is where we're going to have to FOIL. So first, we got 15x squared, outer, so negative 4 times 3x is minus 12x. Inner, 2 times 5 is 10x. We have 2 times negative 4, which is minus 8. Combine those like terms, and we end up with 15x squared. Minus 12 plus 10 is minus 2x, minus 8. FOIL here, so 15 times 3 is 45, and then you have the x squared. 15 times 1, so minus 15x. Here we have a minus 12x. And then negative 4 times negative 1 is plus 4. Combine those like terms, we end up with 45x squared minus 27x plus 4. And then finally, this is one of those we have to remember, you don't ever distribute an exponent in these situations. You have to do you have to do this as a FOIL. So again, first, so you have 4x squared outer 2x times 6 is plus 12x. 6 times 2x is plus 12x. And then 6 times 6 is plus 36. Clean up the like terms. We end up with 4x squared plus 24x plus 36. Alrighty. So factoring out the GCF, so what's the biggest thing that you can divide into both of these? Well, in number 1, we can factor out a 5, and both of them also have an m, which would leave n with the first term, and then end up with a 5 left for the second one. A great way to check this thing is to just multiply it back out. So 5m times n plus 5, if you distribute that back in, you end up with 5mn, and then 25m. All right. The biggest thing that can divide into all these have a 3. They all have actually 2 b's. So that leaves you with an a here. 18 divided by 3 is 6. All the a's are left. We pulled out 2 b's, which means 2 b's are left. And then all that's left there is a 2. So again, when you're factoring out a GCF, it's just what can you pull out? What divides into everything? Here, both of those have a 7, and they both have an x. So it leaves 1x. And then if you divide by 7, you're left with 2, and you've already pulled the x out. Here, both of those have a 5, and that's it. So we end up with 5 minus a. Right. Now when you turn the page, this is where you start to factor using the guess and check or the box method. When there's no term in the front, remember you can just say, all right, we need things that multiply to be negative 20 and add up to be 1. So multiply to be negative 20, that'd be 5 and 4. The 5 needs to be positive, and the 4 needs to be negative. Here they need to multiply to 5, and add up to be negative 6. So if that's the case, that would be minus 5 and minus 1. Here, multiply to be 15, we need to add to be negative 8, so we need a negative and a negative. So two things that multiply to be 15, minus 5 and minus 3, and those would add up to be 8. Here they need to multiply to be 10, add up to be 7. So think for just a moment, that'd be plus 5 and plus 2. So I'll do a couple examples really quickly here, the box method. So now all of a sudden we have a leading coefficient. So remember we do the first term goes in the first box, so we have 3x squared. The last term goes in the bottom box, minus 30, and then you multiply those. 3 times negative 30 is negative 90. So we need factors, we need to multiply to be negative 90, and they need to add up to be negative 1. And if we think about this, we end up with negative 10 and 9. So you have negative 10, you have 9, and make sure you put an x with both those. Now let's get the GCF out of both of those. So this one you can get a 3x. In this row we can get since it starts with a negative, remember this is where we pull out a negative. Right, with this row, the only thing that we can pull out is an x. And then with this row, they both have a 3. You can divide both of those by 3, and that's it. So my two factors in, x plus 3 times 3x minus 10. Do one more box method here to make sure that we're okay. So we end up putting 6x squared here, negative 3, so multiply those together, you get negative 18, so they need to multiply to be negative 18, add up to be 7. So if I'm thinking right, I believe that would be negative 2 and 9. So you have negative 2x, you have 9x. So let's pull GCFs. Both of these have a 3x. There's nothing in common here, so we got to pull a 1. And since we started with a negative, minus 1. Here going this way, 6x squared and then negative 2x. They both have a 2, they both have an x. And here they both have a 3. We don't need a negative because we don't start with a negative. And so the final factored form then would be 2x plus 3, 3x minus 1. The other two, I'm going to just put those answers right here for you, so if you want to pause this if you haven't done it yet and try them on your own. So there's your two answers for 21 and 22. 21's pretty big. Having to find factors of 252. I wouldn't anticipate that tomorrow, but if you can figure that one out on your own, then you're definitely ready for anything that comes your way tomorrow. So, factoring difference of squares, remember that's just where we got to identify. A is 12x, B is 6, just go in order, so then you go 12x minus 6, 12x plus 6. Right, so you just take the square root of each term, and it only works if they're subtracting. Here we have 81, so A is 9, and B, the square root of x squared, is x. Excuse me. So you end up with 9 minus x, 9 plus x. This is where knowing those perfect squares is going to come in really handy. Here you got 2x as A, and 1 is B. So 2x minus 1, 2x plus 1. And then finally 169, the square root of that is 13. And B here is 4x, so we end up with 13 minus 4x, 13 plus 4x. And that's difference of squares.